summertime, by late summertime at least, then that would be a candidate. And certainly the execution, especially for these long lead time events, you're right, it's 6 months. And I think you'll see, we like to engage, usually 2 to 3, 4 months for short cycle events, but longer term, 6 months plus. So it really does start from the scratch. You're hitting the nail on the head. So you're qualified. Yes, that assumption is we're able to do the deep dive on that goal setting, but by the summertime.
Perfect.
Okay. Does that marry up with some of the events you're thinking of?
Well, yeah, I mean, we certainly do have customers that we haven't started engaging with that will actualize in 16. But as you know, some of the bigger stuff that we do, there's longer lead time. So, there's probably a half dozen to a dozen events that we've got in 16 that would have been great candidates that we've already launched. So they're no longer candidates. But that doesn't mean there's not more. I'm just curious.
Totally get it. Understood.
Going back to that, and if I'm addressing things that you've got later on, just let me know and I'll shut up. But so for setting the goals and the reporting, if we're working with a customer that has multiple events a year, their goals per event may be different. So what's the thought process there in terms of, on a dashboard view of the ROI? Is there going to show overall goals that might apply to all events and some that might be unique to other events? What's the thought process there?
Sure, great question. So we have one client already that we've worked through. So they've got 3 family of events that they're going to do 1 of each in the beta. So we actually get this structure, if you will, the parent-child structure of objective to the goals to the metrics laid out for each. And then they can essentially turn the crank that for each one of them. But those are 3, so it's the same client, but they do 3 different ones, an internal event, 2 are very different external events. They can be measured differently. So we're going to be developing 3 different templates for them as part of the beta. They can then reuse those on the other children events that happen within that family. There's also discussion at that same, the reason I brought that up is that the same client, what I also heard in your comment, correct me if I'm wrong, is there's some pieces that span all events that they're looking at to track, and those for this client boil down to registration and revenue. How am I trending over time by my various categories for this event? But largely, where's my registration stand? Where did I want it to be? Am I kind of hitting my milestones or not? As well as for my revenue, sponsor revenue, ticket revenue, et cetera. So those were the ones that they see a common screen across all events doing it, or at least common widgets or common metrics, and then being able to drill down into the event, and that's where there's some concerns about, the beauties in the eye of the beholder, and stuff can be, if you go down much further than that, there can be stuff that can be taken out of context, and then you get some political things where, well, their event is going so well, so give me their marketing budget. I think there's enough of that stuff that sometimes goes on in various folks. But be as it may, we're looking to then see how we might have a separate account set up for those generic metrics that they're going to be publicly available across all their events, and then specific ones by family. So does that answer the question in terms of that's the type of flexibility we're looking for?
That's great.
Awesome. Some fine print in terms of people we're hoping, that I don't want to go to all the details here, but the software, the consulting, the stuff, we're backing it up. Obviously, we're in this to win it. So we'll do what it takes. That's the left side of the screen. The right side, we're hoping that beta participants will be open to, assuming the success, a case study, at least a reference. And around 30, depending on where we are in the show cycle, about 30-minute a week just to check in. How's tool going? That might be on site, that might be Skype, that might be a thing, but because we're in it for the learning and the support, make sure that they're going to be successful, and we don't want things to leak from week to week because there's that snowball bit. So that's what we're looking for, and then there's a confidentiality as well, since this is pre-release software, and we want to make sure that when we go big market launch, there's not we don't get our.
What if and you've got listed there, pre-release, there may be bugs.
Yep.
With how it's been developed, is this a layer on top of the existing functionality, or is this been rolled into the reporting? How is it architecturally? How is it established?
Right. So we built on. So it's on top of one of our mods. It's built on top of the Tap Crowd platform, but it talks to all of our modules through our open APIs. So you don't even need to be a Tap Crowd user. It will light up access to that just because the reason we like that is since it was written to be responsive design. So if you're at the event, you can bring up your tablet, look at your dashboard. You can look at your dashboard on your iPhone, right? So that was the big decision on that one. So architecturally, it's basically I would say neutral.
And what is the degree of risk? Obviously some bugs can be expected. I come from software, so I understand that. Are potential bugs what's the risk of them towards the core? What would be for us the core functionality of eReg?
Yeah, so
turn this on.
Yeah, so in terms of the core functionality, eReg would be nominal because we're looking there at reg counts by category. I mean, very kind of standard information that then we can do some pretty fancy stuff with. So we're getting reg counts on in a near real time, in real time basis, by category. With if you're using eBudget, we're getting some dollars coming across as well. But in particular, the eReg, those counts, and the categories. So I think you'll see how we use those. Yeah. So that's pretty stable. And just to let you know, so when we pop in, I think the ones that matter are let's go through in particular. What are the additional pro services that come on? There's, we certainly, I think you'll see in a sense the methodology in terms of what we do, the benchmarking, best practice, and we know that there's a lot of, this starts to, take us into the area of the business process and workflows and whatnot, along with the data flows. So we know that that's going to be involved. But in terms of the actual, what we do when we land and do the setup, the project management, to defining what those objectives are, working with the client, what are the objectives, what are they trying to do, marrying that up with the data, that's, it's kind of like sausage making, right? We don't let the client see the sausage making behind the scenes. We're going to go and create those templates, and it's actually not that complicated to do that. It's more of talking with them about what are you trying to do? Let's peel that onion. What would be a factor? What would be a measurement point for that? What would be that data point? And then we can stitch that together, and I'll just show you how relatively straightforward that is. And then just let you know, we've kind of thought that I come from both software development as well as a lot of business process methodology and change management aspects. So in terms of what is it that we would be doing, again, I mentioned before the event, we want to engage very early on. Sometimes this is more than 6 months before, right? But what are the various stakeholders trying to get out of the event? When we did this at John Wiley and Sons, I had anywhere from corporate development, biz dev, trying to do some things. I had my product owners doing some stuff. I had marketing, all the gamut. And then I even had the HR for my internal events. So it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder. What are they doing? It's typically who's the budget owner for this event? What do they want to get out of it? Marrying those up, et cetera, all the way through on-site support and a post-event analysis bit. So I think it's been, nothing's ever perfect, but I think we've really taken a lot of learning from other onboarding activities and other betas and folded it into here to hit the ground running. Even the level of what are the types of documentation and questionnaires and whatnot to support us along the way, make it look professional. Again, for the guarantee of ensuring the success downstream. So we can dive into anything you want.
What, Carrie, has the pricing model been finalized for this? Are you looking at like a per event? Are you looking at an increase in reg cost? Is it included? What are your what is the current thought process behind how this will be priced eventually?
It would be a plus module, so it would be one of those add-on modules, like similar to like eSelect or TapCrowd.
Right. So right now, and that's a good point. Adam, we haven't finalized the pricing. As Tara says, that's the direction we're heading. Probably there'll usually be a setup cost, and whether we gear it, because this is where we get stuck, is the nature of the event. Can matter. We want to make sure we have a pricing model that speaks to people who have lots of small regional events as well as big events, right? Because both of those usually have some significant budget behind it that they want to be tracking these things, pretty closely on. So whether it's a conference, where there's a per reg clicker on that, but right now, for the sake of argument, let's just call an event. We know that's actually probably not an accurate statement, but it was around. Consider this software between $1,000 to $2,000 per event. That's a reasonably good size event that I'm spending some significant money on, just as if I were the client. But we're thinking that $1,000 to $2,000 would be some setup and software licensing for that use.
And then would there be discounts for volume if their client's got 40 events, for example?
Yes. There would be. Yeah, we kicked around the the unlimited price point, but then I called Alan Ivory today. He's like, you know what? There's some clients that will do some hundreds and low thousands. So there will be some cap, but there will certainly be a that's obviously
yeah, and I understand it's still in beta, so the final pricing hasn't been established yet. So I get that. I just know that when we pitch this to customers, they're going to ask, what is it going to look like? So if we can tell them it's obviously not going to be included in the current rates. And that there'll, be a nominal per event cost. I think that's sufficient right now.
Right. So for the year-to-year nominal cost, I think before we start getting into bulk discounting, 1 to 2K per event is probably a good number to go for. In terms of the initial year, one thing we're looking at is that's so the 1 to 2K is the year-to-year renewal bit. There could be there's likely to be a couple of $1,000s initial setup fee to go and get. So for anybody who's not in beta, is to go and get up to 3 days of time on there to set up these the templates to work with people to unwind it. Because oftentimes we see clients are asking these questions about event ROI, but they're not asking them across all the stakeholders, getting this stuff together and being able to put the dashboard forward that works. For the decision makers, or throughout the budgetary pipeline. So that's the other component. But then once you do that, and we've trained you up, that comes off, and then you can just do the software only. But we want to make sure we onboard people, successfully, and therefore have that additional activity up front.
No, it makes sense.
Okay, cool. All right, and then to the degree it becomes, we train the trainer. It depends how you want to talking to where they're interested in us kind of training them up to then do that with their clients themselves. So. I don't want to again get the cart from the horse, but there's other ways that we can learn each.
Yeah, no, we would. As Tara mentioned, we like to be the ones to do the work. So definitely it would be more of a train the trainer. Just teaching us how to do it, and then we would handle it from there.
There you go. So let's do through. So here's that parent-child. I think you might have seen an early version of this, right? So if engagement is a big thing, here's one of the master templates and the various ways that people might be looking at engagement. And I won't go into any particular detail, but let's just, if you took a registration as an example, maybe I'm looking at my registration list. I have usually various, a bunch of different categories. I've added on, I've customized it, and I've put my VIP reg here.
Couple questions come to mind. What about if there's a metric that's not listed there? Is there the ability to create a custom metric? And then 2, I think you saw data sources. I'm assuming, the goals might be tied to year-over-year growth. So would you select a prior event and then it would be % growth year-over-year, things like that? Right.
Excellent point. Yeah. So let me take that in sequence. So add a custom objective. Absolutely. So if you don't see one in that template, you can delete the things that don't matter to you. You can choose it. You can create your own template by, actually I should back this up. You can do different building blocks if you want to create your own template. So you don't have to start with a complete blank screen. So maybe it's just attendee. But then if you were to add any one of these nodes, you can then delete most of it, add something brand new, give it a name, give it a type. So in terms of the beta, so we're going out with a bunch of different types of data, including things like web logging data. So that might be a click stream, something in the click stream, might be an ad that's running on eHome, these things. So right now we just have that generically called the logging data, but that's what that's meant to be. You can do some things that are just manual entry. One of our clients that's in beta knows that they've got their financials all over the board. They've got it in various source systems, a lot of acquisition that goes on in our industries and whatnot. And they said, yes, before I go and stitch that all together, I'll just have Mary get the spreadsheets, and at least every morning, she's going to go in and just update the current numbers. Fine for beta, fine for possibly a little longer for this particular client, but that can eventually get automated, as you know, through an API. But for now, their objective was to get a lot of what the event value is in a single place, rather than having all their folks do spreadsheet shuffle, bits and pieces. So looking at this to kind of pull both information out of the etouches platform itself as well as external systems, and rather than having to break the bank or spend additional money, at least pop that into a metric here, just at least manually. And then again, as you see, this is a list we want to continue to build out during beta with folks, and also some of the underlying formulas. But if it was a reg related one, you get the reg counts where you get registration dollars right now. So that's where you start pointing your own custom objective on top of data. And if we don't have the data available, at least you have the option to do a manual enter. And then as well as various threshold values, weighting, max minimums, etc.
Excellent. Terry, is this something that, and I know that you're currently integrated with ScribeSoft. You're talking about expanding that integration. Has there been thoughts about including this ROI stuff in that?
With Scribe?
Yeah.
In what capacity, Adam?
Well, connecting to other data sources. So if, obviously if you're trying to measure a metric that's not in etouches and you don't want to enter it in manually, possibly pulling in ROI metrics from another data source through the Scribe integration. I'm just curious. Like you can connect to because the ScribeSoft is connected to the membership systems. It's connected to Salesforce. So, for example, if you were trying to track membership growth post-event, being able to pull the ScribeSoft data where you're measuring membership activity pre-event and then post-event, and for Salesforce, maybe it's campaign or different activity. I'm not sure if it's been considered, and I'm not even saying that we would have somebody that would want to take advantage of it, but was curious if that had been considered.
Yeah, it's certainly the way I put that out very, very openly is that's something for the second half of this year. Yeah, we're looking, obviously for beta to be, we're largely pulling off the data that's in the platform now, just to make sure to test the market out. We've heard, quite a lot of feedback in our surveys, through BizBash, as well as, a lot of these types of one-on-one conversations. But we want to start, right now with a lot of data that's resident, and then use, what other APIs we have already established to pull in. But yeah, we've already talked to people that are looking to bring in data from Salesforce into that as part of it. ScribeSoft hasn't been brought up yet, but that doesn't mean it's not, on the radar screen. It's just, the more clients that say, hey, that's interesting to me, especially if they're beta, that gets on the list a little sooner than later.
Oh yeah, no, like I said, I wouldn't expect it to be in beta. I understand the low-hanging fruit is the data you already have in the system. I was just curious, so that's great. Yeah,
that's actually pretty cool, because I hadn't come across that yet, but that's now that's on my radar. Thank you.
Yeah, if you go to if you're familiar, but Scribe is it's basically like a professional middle layer. So they've got all these CRM tools like NetForum, Microsoft CRM, Salesforce, that are connected to Scribe, as etouches is connected to Scribe. So basically, you do the API into Scribe, and then any of these other companies can use their connector to integrate through.
That's great. Yeah. So it's the Rosetta Stone of sorts.
Sort of, yeah. So it's kind of, there's a lot of AMS systems there, CRMs. So if you're looking at getting data for ROI, and you want to pull from like an AMS system or CRM, it's going to be a quicker stop than connecting to each individually.
Right. Got it. So the second part of your question was about year-on-year comparisons, historical data, and whatnot. That's actually something that's in the hopper right now, because that was a theme that began to emerge, early on in some of the detailed conversations about people coming into beta. That was, something we had heard a little bit when we're talking about it, early on in the, I guess, late fall, early winter. And then as people really started to turn the crank in their heads and said, yeah, what am I going to want to do with that? It was, around the year-on-year. And so we're actually being able to load historical data into it. So we don't have to wait, a year to turn the crank, if you will. That's that load procedure is actually being developed now, as well as at least a early capacity to compare one event to another based on some basic metrics. So you're able to bring up and look, what did this event do, the last couple of iterations. Part of that is also to build out, so when you create your milestones, you can actually look at the historicals and say, okay, in time we can generate that, what that curve looks like for you. With some data normalization going on. That's in our roadmap for the second half of this year to do that. Until then, we want to at least let you know to help you set and users set a reasonable milestone, so you can bring up load last year's data and see what happened. And should I be looking at, 500 regs by 6 months out, or should it be 5,000? What's a reasonable number? So that's in there as well. And we're going to report, and we report against these milestones. So if I went in, and this dashboard is going to look pretty busy, like it's the cockpit of the 747, because it's one of our more robust templates. So I got a widget for each kind of parent node, if you will, in that. And each parent node, I drill down and bring up its children. So this is how engagement score is being measured. And I know I've got an issue here. And sponsor satisfaction is pretty bad, because I guess I didn't run any banner ads. No one's doing the scavenger hunt. No one's visiting their booth. So I probably don't have a very happy exhibitor right now. In terms of what could I possibly do if I'm at show, what might I be able to do as I'm monitoring some of this stuff? Well, if I look at, sponsor satisfaction is running pretty bad, and I don't need to go, and booth visits is one thing that's jumping out at me during the event. And here's where we're just trying to put a lot of people know, who've been around the event space for, a bunch of years, kind of know what they can do. So being able to have, the opportunity to click and launch another component of the etouches platform to take action. So if I need to set the push message, right, and get them there, rather than call around, okay, I can do that. So, well, right, okay, here's a couple ideas. What can I go do? Maybe run additional banner ad. Maybe increase its rotation. Maybe send a push message, or use e-marketing to send out an email. So it's try to contextualize what you can do about something that's either working out really well or not so well. It's that bit of trying to let people act on it. And the heart of it's in here. So once we set up and do the mapping, it's how things are going over time. So like I said, one of our clients is going to be looking very much at reg and revenue and tracking various categories of the registration. How are those trending over time? Are those building up in a way that I expect to? So there's other data, there's a lot of data and reporting capabilities, inside this one view. But in terms of, trend lines, your target lines, actual values, some of the stuff is often some just generic test data. So excuse if some of these things don't completely make sense, but this is where we're supporting what's the predicted value, your variance going forward. So those algorithms, there's some baseline algorithms that are already in there to support doing that. So it's I think it's a pretty robust beta, as it were. Other ways that people sometimes like to look at this information is, kind of if they have a four-dimensional challenge of where the shape, color, and X and Y position of that. So in this case, a big red dot is not good, especially big red dots that are close in terms of their weighting as an overall objective. So there's various ways that we want to put in front of people to visualize the data, because some people can react better to a pie chart than a bar chart, just the drill down and whatnot. So that's also part of that, is trying to make that easy for them to ingest and take action on the information. So that's the kind of quick drive-by. Customizable, yes. Year and year and comparison coming soon, coming very soon. In terms of the robust bit, an external API described, that's something that will be second half of the year. But then we have our existing APIs also to work on. So, it's more of what the customer wants to do, that'll be then, drive that up. Just in terms of beta, we're giving the 2 days of pro services is really if there is something key that a client wants to get into, and maybe it's something that we get described, we'll invest a couple of days of the pro services to spec that out, to estimate it, and then go back to them with the estimate. We'll eat that upfront cost to do that, and then it's a decision if they want to go and pull the trigger or not. I think that's probably a pretty fair approach during beta to do that, if that is material to the deal.
Okay.
All right. So that's the 1, 2, 3. Thoughts? What do you think? We're light. What do you?
Do you have anyone in mind, Adam, right now? Do you want to do, I was thinking about ABS, honestly, even though it's post-event, because I mentioned that to Bill about America's Beauty Show, and I wasn't sure what we could do as far as the event's is already closed. So, or were you thinking about them for next year?
Well, that's one of them I was sort of thinking about, but they don't even get started until December. So from a beta perspective, it's not going to do any good. So I'm not, and they don't really have the stuff together, to be honest with you. So I don't know that they'd be an effective group to use this for. So I want to run through the list with Travis. There's a couple we have coming up in the fall that might be good. You know, APNA is not yet live, although they're going to be live soon, so we need to get started right away. But they've got their stuff together. They might be a good option. I'll review with Travis and get back to you tomorrow on that.
Awesome. That's much appreciated, Adam. Yeah, because I think we're trying to fill up the last couple of spots, and because obviously we want to. There's only so much spots we want to give out to in order to ensure that personal touch and some of that going through this. So appreciate you getting back to us with a couple of candidates sooner than later. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else do you need from me?
You guys are obviously very technical, so it would be really good to have kind of that perspective as part of the beta program. So let us know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have some in mind. I just want to review them, and I have to double check and see where they are in terms of, you know, when they're going to be going live.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Absolutely. And like you hit on, Travis, Adam. Sorry. It's engaging with them early on as they're thinking through. Hey, what do we want to achieve? What are we doing differently with this event? Whatnot. That'd be great. That'd be more the ideal. So and not try to force feed this, back retrofit it into something. Yeah, and if we have the event data from the year before, we can run a bit of that. That'll largely be eReg and eSurvey for this for beta.
Yep.
And if they were a tap crowd, then we can also run tap crowd. That adds more sand into the sandbox, if you will. But eReg, eSurvey are the primary sources right now with tap crowd modules. All right. So that's I think the bits that we can kick on right now. And until then, I'd love to hear back from you what folks you think will be good candidates.
Sounds perfect.
Awesome.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll get back to you on that and go from there.
Awesome, Adam. Thanks very much. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Feel free to reach out.
Sounds perfect. Thanks again.
Take care. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.